Angela Marie Publishing presents, in association with the Blacked Out Couch Podcast, The Healing Collection, featuring apparel with 10 unique designs to represent your healing journey in style. Also, check out The Survivor, our custom tote bag tailored for carrying those day-to-day loads. A portion of all proceeds are donated to mental health organizations dedicated to the culture and the community. Visit our store by clicking the link in the description or going to www.angelamariepublishing.com to shop now and support the movement. Let's heal.
What's good? This is Jazz from 64111 Studio. Make sure you holler at me for all your mixing, mastering, and recording needs. For booking, please visit www.64111studio.com.
Good evening to all of my brothers, all of my sisters, to any and everyone tuning in and trying to navigate this thing called life. Whether you've been following this healing movement from the jump or you're brand new to the family and tapping in for the first time, welcome, welcome. You are absolutely welcome. This is the Blacked Out Couch Podcast, but we like to think of it as more of a safe space for decompressing instead of your typical pod. And the purpose of this show is to encourage and promote mental health awareness in our communities. For decades, the mere idea of addressing trauma and healing has always been taboo in the Black culture. We're hoping to change that narrative, one day at a time, one conversation at a time. Now keep in mind, although we do believe wholeheartedly that the keys to an intentional healing journey include support groups such as these, as well as a variety of other ways to cope, in no way, shape, or form is this show intended to be a replacement or substitute for professional treatment for your mental health needs. What we want to do is encourage, uplift, and provide our audience with the tools and resources that have helped some of us maneuver in our day-to-day routines. While some of our panelists do have experience and specialize in the mental health industry, we're all everyday people trying to get by, just like you. So always remember, no matter what you may be going through, you are not alone. Again, welcome everyone. It's gonna take plenty of courage to see this thing through, but I got faith in us, ladies and gentlemen. I hope we heal.
Good evening. We're excited to meet you on the couch tonight. Welcome back to those of you who tuned in to our prior episode, Blacked Out Couch Podcast Brothers, where the men talked about why men don't show emotion. The brothers dropped a lot of truths, and we completely support them through their healing journey. But on tonight, we carved out some time for the sisters. The topic of tonight's episode is Strong Black Woman, Essential or Erosive? For generations, Black women have been labeled as strong. In tonight's discussion, we want to dive into where did this movement come from? What were the origins, including a brief reading from the Willie Lynch letter. Sisters, we're going to talk about how being the strong Black woman shows up in our relationships, how it might impact our health, and other ways that it might show up in our lives. The sisters featured on tonight's episode includes the lovely Miss LaShonda Arthurly, a long-term mental health advocate. From Lifted KC, we have its president, Miss Nico Baker. Come through. We have the wonderful Miss Devin Elise, founder of Lifted KC, a powerhouse indeed. Me, Ade Kemi, aka Princess, co-creator of the Blacked Out Couch podcast and co-owner and business manager of Angela Marie Publishing. And lastly, but not leastly by any means, the wise Mrs. Adrienne Taylor, financial empowerment coach and entrepreneur of changing lives financially. So sisters, welcome. Let's hop right into tonight's discussion. Strong Black woman. What is it? What does it look like?
So for me, it was, for the longest time, it has been a badge of honor, to be quite honest with you, maybe because of how I was raised, and specifically by my father. I was raised to not depend on anybody. And I'm realizing like now that was not correct. But, I looked at it as a positive until I took some time to reflect and see how that attitude has negatively affected me over my life. So I'm with Devin, where I'm in a season where I'm okay with letting go with some of that. I mean, individuals have to be strong in order to make it out here, but I don't, the word it has escaped me, but the energy surrounding the strong Black woman term, and the history of why it's actually the way it is now with that it's made me think about a lot of things.
Yeah.
For me, it is complex. So a little bit of both of those things that were just mentioned. And again, just with going through so many things, starting at a very young age, someone telling me that I was strong, because I made it through these, things. And I'm like, wow, you're still smiling. You're still doing this, you're strong. That's why it's more complex for me, because on some days I actually need to hold on to that to make it like it was spoken. I'm strong. I can be that. I'm going to do that. And then on other days, it was like, I feel like a failure because it was spoken and I don't feel strong. And this is not what strong, is supposed to be. So it's very complex for me. I don't think there's like overall anything wrong with being a strong black woman, but everything is time and place. So just having that, discernment on when to flex that strength, when to, be feminine, when to honestly always depend on God to be strengthened. So it's complex, but I believe it is advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I would ditto what everybody has said. And when you asked the question, the thing that came to my mind was blessing and a curse. Because as Nico said, we need strength. We need life be life, and we need we need strength sometime to make it through some of the challenges and the struggles that we face. And that's necessary, right? But sometimes it can be overwhelming. It can be too much. And sometimes we take it too far. Sometimes because of what we think the expectation is, and sometimes society has placed these expectations on us, whether that was the society as a whole or the way we were brought up, because I was brought up with a single mom, and she taught me the name of the game is survival, and only the strong survive. So I didn't have no other choice but to survive, right? Or to be strong, because the alternative was that I wasn't going to make it. And so when you think about that, it often, or at least in my mind, it required that that I couldn't allow myself to be vulnerable at times, and then I couldn't let people be too close to me at times. And so the truth is that I've learned that there is strength in being vulnerable. And so I think again, it's a blessing and a curse. And we may need to reevaluate what that means and set our own expectations versus looking outside for others to give us the idea of what that's supposed to mean. Because I think it can mean different things for different people. But again, it needs to be, we need to not take it too far in terms of the way we relate with other people.
Balance.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what I.
That's right. There's a famous quote. I don't know if y'all heard it, but we said it a lot when I was running track in high school. It's strength is actually weakness leaving the body. Like in order to get stronger, you have to go through something. Like the bodybuilders and anytime you're wanting to truly grow and elevate, sometimes you have to hurt a little bit and to let go. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Growth requires discomfort. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No pain,
Yes.
no gain. Huh?
Yes.
My quote is our greatest weakness is believing we have to always be strong. Like it's okay to not be okay. Like
Yeah.
I promote
Yeah.
that. Look, get an email from me that's coming with it, because it's just like sometimes, like we've all just said, we put these expectations on us, and I like what Miss Adrian said. Like you got to find the balance of when it's necessary and when it's not. It's not always necessary
Yeah.
to pose this strength. Like sometimes it's okay to say I am weak and I need help today, or I just can't do it. I don't got it. It's not in me, because that's where the community comes in, where there's days where we can reach out to one another and lift each other up with that strength, instead of feeling like you always got to pick yourself up. So I think the key is finding balance.
Yep.
Yeah. Balance. That can be hard. Like, how do you know when it's too far, I guess? When do you say, okay, I need a release, versus when do you say, let me keep pressing on? How
When
do
it
you
affects,
kind of know the difference?
but the obvious, like really when it affects you, when it starts to, like it's kind of like even because as a life coach you can't diagnose, but when you talk about even in therapy, everybody experiences anxiety for whatever reason. Things are situational, but when it begins to affect your day to day, then that's when it's a problem, and then it becomes a
Yeah.
Absolutely.
so even it carrying this strength, it's fine to be strong. But when it starts to affect your day to day, when you're so strong that you're tired and you're really not able, you're forcing yourself to push through, it's becoming a problem. You need to look for help. You need to call on someone. I mean, if we, my sister, she's like the Bible scholar. So, but I'm just following suit. Like even Jesus had someone help him bear the cross. Like it was something that he could do alone. So what makes you think that you're strong enough to carry the weight by yourself
In order
all
to
the
have
time?
balance, we need to have some sort of awareness. But is that a good thing? Can't that be daunting? Um, when I think about awareness, it brings me back to a statistic that I read by the National Alliance of Mental Illness. They also go by NAMI, which reports that Black people are 20% more likely to have mental illness than the general population. So, ladies, tell me, why is that? Where does that come from? Do you think it comes from the fact that we feel like we have to carry everything, or do you think it's because we really don't have the resources to even really know or get tested on if we have mental illness?
I think it comes from education and lack thereof. Way
Yep.
back when some of our elders and ancestors, they weren't educated. They wasn't really familiar with therapy and support and getting help and things like that. And because it was really ingrained in them, that just wasn't how they kind of got through things. So as the years came about and that kind of came up, now it's like that we didn't do that. Like we didn't have to do that to survive. Like we made it thus far.
Yeah.
So then there was a real negative impact on the fact of wanting to try to seek help, because this isn't how we made it up until this point. And then also just going back
Right.
to those times as far as slavery, as we were going to mention, like the Willie Lynch and things like that, as far as, slavery goes. And if the color of your skin is traumatizing, then yeah, we're more than likely generations later to, still be more likely to have mental health problems, just because of the unique experiences that we've had from, way back when.
Not only that, science actually says that we carry that in our DNA. It's your DNA changes based on your environment. And so whatever negative stuff you have going on in your environment that's traumatizing you, that's affecting you, it changes your DNA and you end up passing it on to your children. So it's not just solely a mental health thing or based on the current environment or the environment of the child when they grew up. There's trauma in our DNA, literally.
Yeah, mental health is hereditary. So, going way back when, it's just been a cycle. It's just been something that's been brewing, and it is most definitely hereditary. Yeah, it passes on. And typically you're in similar environments that your parents were, or those that you're raising, and you're dealing, and they're also projecting on you. So it's most definitely, hereditary. So absolutely.
Wow. That's amazing that trauma actually has biological effects for generations.
Yeah. I mean, I think we sometimes forget to look at the surface of things. Like we say generational curses, like the cliche, but it is so much deeper. Like they're saying, like it is embedded in us when we like it is a real thing to break a generational curse. Like you're not just stopping a pattern, you're stopping the cycle of a DNA. You're stopping the cycle of illness. Like we have so much within us. It was crazy. I was watching a live of it's a famous couple. I mean, once I say, I don't gotta say their name, but they were going through the process for artificial insemination, and she was getting slandered because she picked a white guy as the person that was to help her have the baby or whatever. And it was just like, you're black, why? And she was listing like there's so many things that we as a black people carry in us that if we mix that and intertwine it with more black people, we're only creating another hurt black child. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, wow, like that is so deep. Like we have to start looking deeper as a people to understand how to make our community better. And when I say our community, I mean black people.
Yes.
And we have to realize that those same changes that caused the same trauma that caused the changes in our DNA, that healing will fix those problems down the line. And even currently, I mean, you get a new body basically every 7 years. Like, so you're constantly growing and regenerating cells, and there's science that backs up that your current environment can literally change your DNA. So if people are working on healing now, they may be able to benefit themselves, but they'll definitely be able to benefit down the line. And like you said, break the real curse, which is the biology of it.
Hold on. You saying our bodies recycle every 7 years like little puppies?
What's the little puppy thing?
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything?
I was intrigued. Like I didn't even know that. Hold on, run that by me.
I mean,
so every 7 years.
Well, basically, you're constantly regenerating cells. So if you start making changes today, then those decisions that you make today could literally turn you into. I'm a witness. I mean, I'm proof of it.
Absolutely.
I'm a completely different person than what I was 7 years ago, physically and mentally. But
I didn't know that, but I
does
was doing some
cross-shaped.
math. I'm coming up on another 7 year.
That-
Hallelujah.
Like, now that you put it together, I'm like, hold on, we about to reset.
Yeah.
That's why you got to start and keep on going. That's why you can't just stop.
Right,
Because
right.
you got to keep
Yeah.
going. You got to keep building on to what you've been
Yes.
working on, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can rewrite all them 35 years of pain and become a whole new person. Listen,
Yeah, you can.
y'all better leave me alone today.
Okay.
Day one of my 7-year journey. Okay.
Okay, look.
And just keep going. Just keep going.
Keep going.
See. So I do want y'all, while we sold on the DNA thing,
Yes.
I do want y'all to talk to us about if there's really a systemic thing that could have happened from way back when, right? So here's the reading of the Willie Lynch letter that Miss Nico had mentioned earlier. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. Her referring to the Black woman. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reversed roles. For fear of the young man's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has psychologically become independent, she will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. And then it asks, what have you got? If you continue on with the letter, it basically talks about a broken community. But do you all think that mentality having been forced into the woman way back when to learn to be independent, does that have anything to do with maybe our inability to even feel like it's okay to show emotion because now we have to play this I'm everything role?
They took our protector and made us feel like we had to be the decision makers. Like they molded that thought process into us. So it's no confusion why we sit around here thinking like we don't need a man for nothing. Like they taught us how to not live with, and this is before the government imposed and said, kick that man out and we'll give y'all money. Like this was back in slavery where they took our men and threatened to harm them to put fear in us to obey. Like when you read that, like I got chills like that. It just makes everything make sense. Like you mother.
But it goes to what I think Adrian was saying earlier too. Like sometimes we just like take it too far because, you know, when I hear that, it's most definitely right in line with all of the systematic things that have been done to us, you know, over centuries. But it is in line with kind of taking it too far. So if you were in a situation and you had no choice, the protector was taken away, so you had to raise the children, and then you raised them in the way that letter, that what she just read highlighted. That's because you were in that scenario. We took it too far. We didn't have to be in that scenario. Like when slavery ended, we didn't have to be in that scenario. So there's just a gap where we fail to unlearn things. So if that's forced upon you and that's what you have to do, then in that sense, that woman was frozen and then she had to make it happen. I'm going to take care of these babies. I'm going to do the best I can. And she had to make it happen. But in some current situations, because that's ingrained in us, and as you said, we agree it's in the DNA, we've been fighting against that for years. And so then we've had situations where we actually didn't have to do that. We could have had the father around. We could have had the support. But it was so ingrained in us that we kind of, you know, self-destroyed. And then we ended up, you know, taking care of the babies by ourselves and things like that. So sometimes we just kind of take it too far. So we got to stand up and say, hey, we free. we do not have to be separated from, the men in our life, and we don't have to raise the babies by ourselves. And we got to make, better decisions from the beginning as to, who we're going to create our families with, and, and things like that to, reduce our risk of having to, raise babies by ourselves and things like that.
So that goes back to mental health.
Absolutely.
You got a lot of hypersexual people at a young age because of mental health problems.
Absolutely.
So
the men was talking about that on their segment, like how you need a license for everything but to make a baby. When they said that, I think I passed their life.
Yeah,
I've thought about that before myself.
Of all the things that are so important, we don't have any training or book or nothing on how to, take care of kids.
Or learn how to insert. You just the act of doing it, and you just do it, and here's a baby. Like,
yes,
right.
Yeah.
I was going to add to what Nico said. I think she made some very valid points. But one of the things that stood out to me is that the Willie Lynch letter, it talks about how the man was demasculated in front of everybody.
Oh yeah.
They beat and tortured him. And so, and that was done to pull him down out of his position and his role as the protector, because now if this could happen to him, then what hope or what chance do I have, right? So it was done to instill fear, and so I think that fear though has been a consistent factor, because as you think about the systemic things that have been put in place, institutional racism that we've experienced now as people, we still have a certain level for mamas of boys, and I happen to be a mama of boys. We got to teach them to operate in a certain way, because now the threats aren't as blatant in your face like they were back in slavery days, but there's still those threats that are there. And so how do you navigate teaching your son to be a man and be a strong man, but and play the role of a leader in his family and in his community, but also know that there's these potential threats that are out there within the community. And so there still is that level of fear that's there that we have to learn and still navigate through in raising Black boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still present even when, like, I have a 15-year-old son. I have to almost instill a certain amount of fear in him. If you get pulled over, this is
exactly.
So
it
look the same as slavery, but it's still us like not raising our kids to be so boisterous, or don't you walk in there with this amount of confidence, because then they may rip you down. Right. So it's like Nico said, at what point do we realize our power and we put a stop to it? Because sometimes we go too far. Like, in a sense, the fear is still there, because for me, I'm still going to tell my son, you be the best you can be. You go in there with your head held high. But on the flip side, I still have to be like, if you get pulled over, make sure you lower your shoulder, don't come off as aggressive. So it's kind of like, what's the word?
They have to try to decipher that subconsciously, because now their subconscious is confused.
Yeah, it's like you telling me to be strong, mama, but then on the flip side, you telling me to sit back and shut up, and it's like, so that you can come home to me. I am definitely shut up, keep your hands on the wheel, come home, and we'll work through it. I would rather you come home though. So,
but it goes back to time and place. If we're just understand there's a time and a place for everything, it's not, this is your core. This is your character. This is your core. I want you to be strong. I want you to have head held high. You can do whatever, but there's a time and place. Sometimes it's not the time to stick your chest out. So at this point, if you're, being pulled over and we have the statistics of how that could turn out, then that's not the time or the place for you to stick your chest out.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good way of putting it. You don't want to be instilling fear in them per se,
Right.
that particular emotion, but just discernment and
Yes.
yeah.
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 Because to me,
That's-
it's like you're contradicting what you're telling, but then when
Exactly.
it's still a thin line for me because I
Yeah.
should you shouldn't have to adjust who you are because of the color of your skin. So it's still, yeah, it's a time and a place, but it shouldn't be a time and a place. Who you are should be who you are wherever you go, and you shouldn't be looked at as a threat because you're a
But
strong,
your presence.
black boy. You know?
Exactly.
And our black boys should be able to live in their truth,
Yeah.
That's right.
just
I
like
agree.
anybody else should be able
That
to.
Willie Lynch letter definitely shows how that was the kickoff to everything. And they've been doing the Willie Lynch letter systematically in different ways. Like them killing our babies in these cars when they pull them over, or because they walking down the street, or because they knock on the wrong door. It's instilling fear in us. Like that they're doing the exact thing. It's the modern day lynching. And
Right.
it's horrible. It's like, at what point, like, as much as we say and we protest that enough is enough, how do we really make enough of enough? How do we as women, because I was talking to one of my brothers, and it's like he was at a lot of protests, and I'm like, I'm hearing all of these women speaking. Like, at what point can we step back from being this strong black woman and taking the stand and speaking up for rights and speaking up for our sons, and we have men like assume their role as our protectors, and we stand and back them as their helpmate, as the one, like, it's just, yeah.
So my husband he says all the time, a woman doesn't understand her power, especially when it comes to a man. And so if you look back in history, you can see the influences. You know, that the saying that behind every strong man or good man there, or successful man, there's a woman, right? So we've got to recognize that strength that we have, but use it for good. So speaking life into our black men, encouraging them, and finding ways to build them up, you know.
That's
I
right.
think is a start. Allowing them, and my husband hates when I say that phrase, allowing a man to be a man. But it's true. We do. We have to allow them, because if we competing for that role, then we're not allowing them to be the man, right? So I think that, to your question, your point, Devin, is one way that we can do that is through speaking life into them and letting them know that we believe in them and that we support them, versus the divisiveness that we have unfortunately had in our community for far too long.
Right.
Yeah.
Us against them. It's power. It's power.
Yeah. Really speaks to a lot of the frictions that we tend to see in our families and in our homes, which could be contributing to some of our identity crisis. Another statistic by NAMI actually speaks to the Black youth, and that statistic is that ages 5 through 12 are twice as likely to commit suicide than their white counterparts. So clearly, you know, there is evidence that there is an identity crisis which exists in the Black community, and women, I know that it dates back hundreds of years that we had to pick up and play the strong supportive role. But at some point, imagine that, yeah, maybe we had to be tagged in for a minute, right? It's just like if we were running a relay, right? And it's just two people. The person at the head, they need a break sometimes. You know, you pass the baton. We had to carry us for a little minute, but there should be a way for us to kind of balance out and recognize their strength. And I just learned that recently. So I've been married for 2 years, and my husband would get very upset with me for the first year and a half of our marriage, because at nighttime I would just get out the car and go in the house, you know, not thinking anything in the world. And he would always say, like, you aren't thinking about your safety because it's not in your nature. Like, yes, I know you're strong. Yes, I know, like you could have held us down. But in that moment, were you even thinking about the fact that I could really protect you? So give me the opportunity just to walk you in from the house when it's dark outside, because of what that does for me, and a different type of like I show him love that way. And that just blew my mind, because I was raised by very strong women, but my grandmother always instilled in me, you don't depend on no man. You have to hold it down. You can't show no vulnerability. And I literally was taught that. And so this concept of just kind of taking a step back and relying on a man, it was foreign.
That's what I was gonna add when after Miss Adrian said what she said. I was just gonna add that we have to be receptive. That's the problem that I'm finding that I have had, is being able to receive. Like, I don't got no problem giving, but and I know a lot of us don't have a problem giving, because we give and give and give and give and give until we ain't got it no more to give.
Right.
But we got to be able to receive as well, and receive gracefully, and receive like we're worthy of receiving, and receive like we deserve to be receiving it.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Convicted.
So I was thinking when you were talking, and I was thinking, like, again, that I was raised by a strong, phenomenal Black woman. And that's what she taught me. You don't need a man. You don't need a man for nothing, really. And don't you depend on nobody but yourself. And so as I reflect on that, that came from a hurt space. That came from a hurt place. And so she thought that she was protecting me. She thought that she was helping me, really. And so as we're talking about mental health, we it's important for us as Black women to take care of our mental health. It's a big buzz about self-care. Mental health is part of that. Mental health is part of self-care, because just like traditions are passed down, our programming is passed down. So the programming from slavery, we still see that permeating through our community now in so many different ways. And so if we don't heal ourselves, then I think one of us already kind of spoke to that, that healing yourself, then LaShonda, that was you. It allows you to then create a new program to pass on to the next generation. But otherwise, we just continue to repeat the programs of the past. And the way the brain works is just like a computer. Whatever the software tells it to do, that's all it's going to do. Can't do nothing else.
it.
Right.
That's it.
I try to flip it, because I come from a 2-parent home. I love both of my parents, probably equally, depending on who's on my good side at the time. But as my little dog just laid down here, but as much as I love my mother, I have to admit and realize that a lot of my strength came from my father, and the whole independent thing came from him. I mean, can't nobody tell me I'm pretty, because my daddy always told me I'm pretty. Can't nobody tell me what I need for my car. Like, even in relationships, I always called my dad first. It was like, it wasn't until I got a little bit older, like maybe a few years ago, that it was just like, he is not supposed to be my go-to for everything. But because he showed me, like, I'm going to show up as daddy. I'm going to always be there. If your car messed up, I don't care if you got a husband or not, daddy's going to show up. It took me to realize, like, that's not your role anymore. And that, having that relationship, it hindered me being able to be receptive. Like Miss Adrian said, like, he has to have his place, and I have to give my husband or the man in my life his rightful place. So, yeah.
Mine came from my dad as well, but now that we talking about this. And Miss Adrian just said that she think it came from a place of hurt with her mom. I think with my dad, it may have came from a place of um, knowing himself and assuming that other men are automatically going to be like he is character wise. So yeah, like, because a lot of the stuff that he told me about, about men and, not to trust men and, now that you saying you think it came from a hurt place with your mom, I think maybe it came from a projection with my dad.
Yeah.
Like I was looking for my dad in the men that I was dating.
Right.
I've had this whole season of self-reflection. Just like I like older guys, not because I wanted them old like my dad, but because of the protection that my dad carried. It's like you can only be that established older. Like young guys, y'all don't know how to take, y'all don't know how to lead behind ears. I need an old man that can handle me. And it wasn't like I was necessarily trying to get someone like my father because I didn't have my father. It was because I knew how much love my daddy gave me, that you got to match his energy or I can't deal with you. And I gave that energy out. Like if I still got to call my daddy when I'm dating you, you ain't the one. And nobody has really ever been the one, because I wasn't able to let my daddy have his place just as my daddy and allow a man to have that full reign in my life. So I'm just listening, like, yeah, we get it from our mamas, but sometimes we get it from our daddies too.
Well, and I got from my mama that I didn't want to be like my mama in the marriage. Because I mean, there's a lot of things that my dad did that I never would imagine I could ever allow somebody to do and stay married to him. And they've been married, they just made 50 years. So, my mom, she's a great woman, but as far as in a marriage, I don't think that her influence helped me be a better woman.
I'm gonna challenge that.
Right. The spite of helps too.
Yeah. We see what we don't want, and then we decide to do different.
Yeah.
So sometimes that can be the outcome of growing up.
That's true. That's true.
See. So yeah,
that's true. Yeah, because I've said that before about, like, because I personally have had friends who grew up in abusive households and or with abusive dads or stepdads, and they turned around and ended up in abusive relationships, and that's their cycle of relationships. That's the road that they went down. And personally, I chose the opposite. And I used to say that all the time, like, you're going to either go one of two ways. You're going to go completely opposite, or you're going to go down the same road.
Right.
Yeah. So without realizing it, you changed maybe a pattern that you saw growing up. You made a decision to do something different. Yeah. I was just sitting and reflecting and thinking about how early on, I've been married 26 years. And so early on in our marriage, I see how I competed with him instead of letting him be the man. It was a competition because I'm strong, and you need to know that, and you need to put some respect on my name, right? But I was fortunate enough to have a woman. We had these really close friends, and they were older than us, that the lady sat me down and told me about myself. And I was like, ooh, okay. Well, at first, of course, I didn't receive it. But then I had to think about it. And I made some decisions to change and kind of step back and allow my husband to assume the role that I believe God ordained for him to have in our household, in our family. And that changed the dynamic of our relationship. And so I didn't have an example of what that was supposed to look like, because I only had a mama. I only had a mama present. So I think it was interesting. I guess I was just doing some reflection and thinking about how that strong Black woman and what I thought it was supposed to be, how that showed up in the relationship, and how when we are in competition, that we can't have success in that relationship, because there are roles that each one of us are supposed to play.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you couldn't tell me that 10 years ago. A gender role, excuse me.
Yeah. And you know, that looks different. So as I'm thinking about it, because my husband cooks, right? And so traditionally it's women is thought to be the cook. So it's not necessarily that there are roles in our household or our family that, oh, that's the woman's job, that's the man's job. But as I think about my foundation is a biblical foundation, and it says that a man's greatest need is to be respected, and a woman's greatest need is to be loved. So as I respect my husband and treat him as the king of our castle, then I in turn get to experience what it feels like to be treated like the queen of the castle. And so when people think about that, sometimes you can they could get caught up on that, letting the man lead, letting the man be the head of the house, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a dictator type of situation or role, or those clearly cut, defined roles. Because, like I said, my husband he vacuums, he does housework, he does laundry sometimes. So, like, we share the load, but I recognized him and I respect him as the king. That's who he is for me and for our family. That's what I've taught our children, so that that's what they can model when they decide to start dating. So I think it really is about a mind shift in us rethinking how we see ourselves and how we can still be the strong Black woman, but also that be it not be a adversarial role, but more of a teammate role.
Right.
I think when it comes to the whole role with the whole gender roles, I think actions need less to be discussed, as far as like what role do I have around this household, or what role do I have in responsibility wise, and more so that conversation needs to be about what do I bring to the table emotionally, mentally, like, because I had posted something in the group about people's brains being on a spectrum as far as feminine characteristics and masculine characteristics, and how we all fall somewhere in between that spectrum. And instead of trying to figure out, well, this person should do this around the house because they're a woman, what mental aspects can you offer? And it's something that should probably be discussed. What are your strengths mentally? What are your strengths emotionally? What are yours? That way we know who plays what role in that part of the relationship. And the physical stuff can be figured out. The material stuff can be figured out. But if you have, so I guess for instance, like I'm very analytical, like very logical, and sometimes way too analytical, and I find it a little bit more difficult to deal with men who are like that, just because my opinions are strong and they have a logical mind as well. We get to going back and forth. So I think we got to figure out where we fall at on that spectrum of masculine, feminine mentality, emotional wise, because like I said before to you guys when we were having the meeting before the podcast and everything, sorry. I just lost the whole thought. It's
okay.
ADHD. I got ADHD. It just
Yeah.
completely left. So, and
It's okay. It's okay. Getting into some pretty heavy stuff tonight. So I think we could all use some time to decompress. Let's go to commercial break.
What up, podcast world? This your dude, Walt Lee Dundilla, the Popper, Mr. Activelli. Pull up on me, 1809 Vine, 8600 Ward Parkway, or yes, I'm KC.com.
KC is my home. Most scratched in the rest, where your bag at? Posted in the store, moving t-shirts and dad hats. Buy 3, get 1 free, you can have that. Niggas get planted, quintiles being lab rats.
At Lifted KC, we aim to reduce the stigma associated with mental health by promoting awareness of mental illness, its symptoms, and providing resources for those in need. We believe that through trust, relationships, understanding, service, and teamwork, transformation is possible. Support the Men Heal movement by donating to the Cash App handle LiftedKC.org. For more information about our organization, visit www.lifted.kc.org. Lifted KC, transforming lives through hope and healing. So we was in a groove. I'm sorry. You can keep going, or I can move on to something else.
I completely forgot what I was about to say.
Okay, it's okay.
That's how ADHD brain work. Just in case y'all don't know, like mid conversation, just lose everything. So
yeah, no, that's okay. I think we were kind of talking about like the emotional needs that you have to express in a relationship, right? Like for me, if I'm really hurt by something or if I'm grieving, sometimes I just need time to myself. And so my husband understands that. He'll check in with me every once in a while and say, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Talk to me. I'm here. And if I say I just need my time, I'm processing, he say, okay, that's cool. But he always just reminds me like he's here, but he doesn't like force me to be vulnerable too soon. And the reason why that's so important to me is because I'm not used to even trusting a man to do that. And he started just making that very known to me, like, at some point you can lean on me, right? Like my father passed away March of 2021. And I just hadn't really talked about it. I hadn't really opened up about it. And I just had a moment. We were watching a movie and it was like a funeral and it had nothing to do with a father, but it was just like seeing the flowers, seeing the whole event. I just kind of got emotional and I was able to tell him like, hey, I'm at my limit. I need some space. And some people that would cause an argument, like, oh, you're just going to interrupt this day. Like, no, and they try to like ignore what you're going through instead of even addressing it. And it used to be a problem to address it, right? It used to not be okay to address it. Or people wouldn't be okay with you saying, hey, I need a moment for my mental health. Just like they'll say, hey, take a moment if you have 104 fever. Like
right.
Someone can really have mental health needs that affect their well-being, and that should show up in our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm the same way as you. When I get overwhelmed, I gotta cut all outside stimulus out, all of it. And I have like one of my family members that I'm used to talking to on a regular basis, and I was in a place where I was overwhelmed. I wasn't answering my phone, wasn't talking to nobody, and I had to go and explain to this person like, hey, this don't have nothing to do with you. And granted, they were dealing with their own stuff too, and I'm the type of person, I talk to people about stuff. I don't hold grudges. And as long as you willing to have a conversation with me and we can get over it, we are good. But having to explain to people. I lost a friend like that. I lost a really good friend that I had for a long time because she could not understand that when I got overwhelmed and I got stressed out, I can't entertain nothing else. One, I'm not going to be genuine. I'm not going to be interested in whatever you're talking about. My mind is going to be somewhere completely different, even if we are in the presence of each other. So is that what you really want? I'd rather just be to myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a shame plug real quick because Lifted KC, the Blacked Out Couch group, and Angela's Publishing Company, we started maybe a week or so ago a grief support group called Griefing. And we're looking to do it once a month. And one of the things that I said in there, and I am a firm believer, like it is something that I practice even going into relationships. I teach people how to love me because dealing with the mental health, dealing with grief, like you can go into this rabbit hole out of nowhere. And people, if they don't know, if they don't understand, then how do you expect them? Like in our minds, we do. Like when I go into my state of depression, just out of nowhere, like I can wake up and I'll just be like, I don't like nobody. And the most frustrating thing is people constantly asking me why, what's wrong, what happened, what got you there. I had to teach people when I'm in a good space, those are not good questions to ask me because what you're doing is you're making me feel more guilty that I can't explain why I feel how I feel. So I teach people when this is what it's going to look like. This is how I may respond to you. I may make it like I don't want you around, but don't leave me in the house by myself. Just go in another room, maybe periodically check on me. I'm not going to respond to you, but it's going to help bring me out of the place. If that's not what you can do, let me know so that I can have somebody else in that space. I'm a firm believer that dealing with mental health, you have to be transparent about your needs. You can't do it when you're in the state of it because for the most part, we're like zombies. You know what I'm saying? Like we're still functioning. A lot of us are high functioning in our illness, but we still have those moments where it's just like, I don't know why the hell I'm crying. Quit asking me why I'm crying. I don't know. So I've learned that has been very beneficial to me in grieving, in dealing with my depression, in anxiety, all of that. Like the people that are close to me, they know what it is. Me, my mother, my sister, we have a code pineapples. If I take it's an emergency. Like you teach people how to be responsive to you when you aren't in a state to communicate that. Tune in our podcast. Well, it's not a podcast, but our grief and support group.
Clubhouse group.
Yeah. The Clubhouse group.
Better. But yeah, like the tools needed to process through life when you're battling mental illness, it is real. Like the word says, you have to be armored up because like it's so crazy. Like as spiritual as I am, I just like as I'm getting older, the things that were instilled in me biblically when I was younger is making more sense now. Like you really have to have an armor for everything. Like that armor of God is real. Armor yourself up with your friends. Know who your go-to, know who your circle is, know how to self-regulate when you have nobody. Like you have to emergency kit.
You have to.
Yeah.
You learn those things though, Devin. You absolutely right. And so that goes back to that self-care. And if you know that you are in a space getting professional help and not having any shame about that, knowing that it's going to help you to be a better version of yourself, learning that it helps you learn self-awareness. And so if I'm not self-aware, then I can't speak to how
that's the first step,
how I'm feeling. And then I can't teach nobody else or tell nobody else what I need when I'm in those spaces. And so, yeah, self-care through mental health and working with a professional so that you can get those coping skills, because it's important for everybody to know what their skills are, what they need, who their supports are, like you're talking about, Devin. So self-awareness is a big piece of that we all need to learn and practice.
Exactly. So like that's where I learned how ignoring mental health can be erosive, right? And that can be one of the negative parts of being the strong Black woman, because yes, you can carry on, yes, you can barely get by, but at some point there's going to be implications. I've heard people say either you can choose to take care of your mental health, or your body will force you to do it.
Right.
Um and so really, if you're able to learn how to be vulnerable and open up, you can see it progressing and flourishing in other areas of your life. Like for me, I started a weight loss journey in 2018. I lost about 70 pounds by the time my wedding came in 2021. And that was shortly after I had started doing therapy. I started doing counseling. And it took me a very long time to open up to my counselor. But as I started to realize how I was able to overcome so much, I also learned that by addressing that and by offloading that to someone else versus keeping it bottled in, it helps me kind of look in the mirror and recognize how strong I am. And so if I feel like I can do that with her, I can also do that with my husband. If I actually open up and tell him things that I've been through, things that bother me, instead of me thinking he's going to look at me like I'm weak, he's going to be like, she's dope. Like she's been through some things. And so it can be erosive in that we're actually inhibiting growth, right? But I also heard that it's essential in that it's helped us get to this point, and we can't ignore that.
Right.
But we can have more. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like you said, it's both sides of it. So with the strong Black woman concept, I do agree with like the very first word Devin said. So like on the flip side, it's like, you feel that pressure, you feel that anxiety, you want to be strong all the time. Honestly, it can, make you angry, you're mad, like, because I have to do all of these things and no one else is, helping me with this. And also, as Princess just mentioned, it also there's avoidance, like there's things you need to be dealing with, like for yourself, for your personal care, and you're avoiding those things because you're just trying to hold everything else down. And so those are basically some kind of negative impacts to being the strong Black woman. But then on the other hand, with the strong Black woman concept, it has made us accountable. So when this comes about and everyone's like the strong Black woman, so now we have what society says it is and how we've behaved and the things that so now we're like, oh, I have all these things now, and now I can break it down and understand. So it leads us to that awareness. So I do believe one really good thing that comes out of the strong Black woman concept is just aware. We're now aware, like we've been carrying all this on our shoulders. We didn't have to. There's support systems. There's the Blacked Out Couch for Sisters. There's Lifted KC. There's just all these things now. So the strong Black woman concept has made a lot of us aware. And so now we can use that to our advantage and make it work for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's good.
While still showing vulnerability around the people that we love.
That's the awareness piece. Now we know. As Adrian said, showing vulnerability is a strength. So there's just a lot that, we're aware of now. So it does,
Yeah.
I think one of the other things to awareness is knowing, like my therapist always, like she does wordplay, and it's beneficial because there's so many stigmas around mental health, counseling, therapy. Like, don't encourage someone to go see a therapist. Be like, hey, you want to go talk to somebody? Because there's this negative connotation, like when you say therapy, like, oh, you think I'm crazy, oh, this. But be mindful that even when you take that step to talk to someone, it's a dating process. Like I tell people all the time, like do consultations, because if you're not comfortable with the person that you're talking to, you're not going to be vulnerable with it. I went through a process of talking to multiple therapists before I found the one for one. Again, sometimes we do too much. I'm very strong-willed. So I don't want you to pacify me. Like I need somebody to get in my tail when I need it to happen. Like I'm big on accountability. Now, while you're saying it, I may shut down and go quiet, but that's only because I'm going to go process everything you said, and then I'm going to come back and tell you was right. So make sure that when we're encouraging the people that are listening, you're in a place where you feel off or you feel like there's some things that you're battling, go talk to somebody and date those people the same way we date people in relationships to see if they're good for us. Do that with the person that you're going to trust your most intimate information with, because that is going to be the person that helps pull you out of that dark place. It is important. It is self-care to go talk to somebody because you're growing for yourself. And that's the key.
I think people need to understand that therapy is beneficial for everyone and not just people who are suffering with mental health problems.
Yeah.
Everyone can benefit from therapy.
Absolutely.
Whether that's behavioral therapy, whether it's talk therapy, whatever the case may be, every person can use an unbiased person that they can go and talk to.
Yeah.
I agree with you, LaShonda. We have, because everybody has blind spots, right?
Yeah.
We feel like we at the top of our game. We still have blind spots. And those blind spots could potentially be hindering you from progressing in areas and ways that you want to progress in life.
Yep.
Absolutely. Think about somebody who constantly go through the same relationship patterns and never figures out. At some point, if you're going through these same relationship patterns, then something that you got going on, and it typically probably has to do with you too. You know, it took me a long time to realize that. Going through the same patterns of types of relationships I was having, and coming to the understanding that it must be something with me.
Yeah. And not necessarily something wrong. It's
no, but something I need to heal.
Yeah, you just have to know yourself.
That you can't necessarily see or recognize. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something wrong, but
no, I just meant something that obviously I need to heal something. Something in me keeps bringing.
Well, I was just saying that in general. A lot of people think, oh, there's something wrong with me because and that's what society places on people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that kind of saying about if this happened, this person, this one, but you're the main factor, and you know, like it's such a negative connotation that it's something wrong with you because you've kind of been in like similar patterns. But the thing is, you're not taking the time to step back, know self. That's like the first step. You just got to know self. You got to know how you respond to things. You got to know what you attract. You know, you got to know what you're putting out there that's attracting, you know, certain, you know, similar type of, you know, things and situations. And then once you again heal and self-develop, learn about yourself and process and heal and things like that, then you can find yourself in a different or responding differently to things. So then you're not ending up in those same, you know, kind of patterns.
When you keep ending up in the same pattern, it's something you're supposed to learn from that situation.
Yeah.
But we look at health as a community, like as a reactive thing.
Right.
I'm looking at doctors, like most people in our community, they're not going to the doctor until something.
That's right.
So I look at like you go to your wellness visits, you're supposed to go to your wellness.
Yeah.
Go get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. Like if you're doing these things, then the doctor is more prone to catching something that could potentially hurt you. It's the same as therapy. If you're talking through things, they're giving you tools to help counteract if something was to approach. Now, I look at therapy like you're going to it and then boom, you have a loss. now you take that to your therapist. Okay, give me the tools to process through this grief. But I was already going. So what could have broken me more without proactively getting tools on my tool belt? Now it's like now I'm just winging it. So
Yeah.
we need to treat it like our health is a holistic approach. Like as much as we say mind, body, soul, spirit, like all of that, you have to proactively make sure all of that is intact, because theoretically, if one thing is off, it's going to mess up something else.
Absolutely.
When our mental is off, it affects our weight. It affects our eating habits. It affects our physical being. And then that trickles into, like Miss Adrian is going to speak on, it could trickle into our financial state of mind, because now we're either blowing money or can't keep a job to make money. Like, it's a holistic approach, and we have to treat our lives that delicate that we have to proactively protect ourselves from anything that's going to come against us. The Bible doesn't say that it's not going to form. No weapon, they will form, but we have to equip ourselves with tools necessary to be ready for those wars. When we just go in it blindly, that's how we end up getting more damage. That's how we end up enduring trauma. That's how we end up in pain. That's how we deal with suffering. That's how we keep on repeating habits, because we're not learning the lessons that God is like, I'm going to keep letting you bump your head until you realize. I'm going to keep letting you endure this pain until you realize that there are people that go to school, get these loans just to help make you better. Therapy is an act where they're giving you tools, but you got to want to be better. It's an intentional act. So I just think, like, even being so strong, like, that's why my quote is what it is. Like, sometimes we think we too damn strong to go get help. Like, no, it's okay to say I need help in a certain area. It's okay to say I just want to go to the doctor because I want to get a checkup. Like, as a community, a lot of our illnesses will be caught and dealt with before they're at stage 3, stage 4 cancer, before we end up with diabetes. If we had better diets and better nutrition and exercise, like, there's a lot of things that we can prevent in our own lives, but we walk in this world blindly and without knowledge and without a care in the world.
Yeah.
With my tangent, sorry.
No.
All right.
Don't
It's
be
all right.
it's okay. Yeah. No, that's exactly
It is
right.
holistic though. I mean, and like Princess said, once you start in one area, you can't help but continue to go, because once you start seeing growth in one area and realizing, accepting where you came from and understanding how far you've come, it's almost, you don't want to stop, especially when you are seeing benefits from it manifesting in your everyday life, whether that be with relationships, finances, friendships. When you start seeing the benefits of doing those proactive things, then you're going to keep going anyway. But most people, it's the getting started one is change. People fear change so much. But the one thing that's inevitable about life is change. So, therapy helps people to become more adaptable. There's just with that whole holistic approach, sleep. So many people do not sleep enough. Sleep affects mental health, so if you could just start one day, going and taking steps towards, whether that be, there's cognitive exercises you can do. There's a lot of free resources available. I spent years in self-help and psychology on the internet because the information is available to us, because I knew I needed help and I couldn't afford it. So
that's a whole nother story. But because I mean, you can be in dire straits. I mean, just the small piece of my history, I literally was kicked out of treatment that I needed because some bureaucracy, some procedure changed with my healthcare provider, and I'm like in the midst of some critical treatment that I needed, and they're like, yeah, you got to go and we'll figure it out later. Oh, will we? Well, like I said, I'm still here, but that's just a whole nother story when it comes to really needing the tools and really needing the treatment and really needing psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, therapists. Therapy could be $150 a session. And we need it. And it would be great if I can do that twice a week, but $300 a week,
Right.
And you got to pay your bills, and we still out here being single parents. And, it's like that is a whole another, ball game within itself, but it is that's why, again, awareness is, really important, because I'm a Google queen. So, there's a lot of things you can Google, you can find for free.
Yeah.
There's books you can download for free. There's all type of coping techniques you can find and all type of things, online. So I'm so glad that that's a thing, because man.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Nico. There's a resource called Open Path, which is a therapy platform, and it's therapists who recognize that some people don't have access to therapy because of the financial piece. And so they charge sliding scale fees and discounted rates for therapy. And it's online, it's virtual.
Awesome.
Most of the therapists, there may be some who are providing in-person sessions, but Open Path is a resource. And then the community mental health centers will often do sliding scale fees for people who don't have insurance. So they base it on income. So there are a few resources available.
Yeah.
It definitely can be a barrier if you don't have the finances or the insurance. So yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I know.
Let's not talk about medication, because my medication with my insurance every month costs. Last month I had to pay $125. This month I had to pay $80 because there's a shortage on my particular medication right now. And so I'm having to go running back and forth with my psychiatrist and to the pharmacy to see which dosage they have available at the pharmacy, so I can get the psychiatrist to write a prescription for it. But the cost of just the ADHD medication is over $400 just for a month.
Yeah.
And I can't tell y'all how much it has helped me. Like, I may not even would have been here right now, because my brain would have been going a million miles an hour, been able to have this conversation with y'all and be able to look like I'm paying attention.
Yeah. So I think that actually is a good time to promote, Miss Adrian, what you do. Again, here you were talking about how actually you and we were talking offline. I'm gonna bring it online. We were talking about your passion for being able to bring knowledge and understanding into finances, right? And how those systemic pressures of not having as much often weighs on our mental, and how we actually can take advantage of resources to be better, and how we really don't have to be as strained financially if we really take advantage of some resources out there. So do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Okay. I don't remember which resources I was talking about, but so just off the fly, the platform that I work with, the company that I'm contracted with, is geared towards middle income America. And so they pride themselves on making resources that are typically available for wealthy people, making them accessible to middle income America and everyday people, right? So whereas with maybe an investment company, you might need $1,000 or a couple of thousand even to enter into the market of investing. I have several companies that I work with that you can start investing in those same Wall Street stocks that are available, those mutual funds that are available for as little as $25 a month. And so that may not be all that you need to invest, but it gets you in the game and it gets you started and helps you start to create a plan. But we don't know that these resources are available. Other things like teaching, I'm big on education. And so teaching people about financial literacy and how to allocate your money and how to come up with strategies so that you're properly protecting your family and your family's finances. Again, these are things that we're not taught. There's a rule, it's called the Rule of 72 when it comes to dealing with money. And so that rule says that depending on the interest rate that you have, it tells you how many or how often your money will double. And so this concept is simple enough that maybe a third grader, my third grader, understood it. But we're teaching our kids algebra and geometry in the third grade, but we don't get the lessons on what to do with our money, which is the biggest resource that we have, or our ability to make money. And we don't get taught what to do with that. So we just kind of go out here and have to figure it out. And again, we don't, not having access to the information, we've become one of the largest consumer groups. So it's not that we don't have the money available and we're spending it, but we just need to figure out, learn how to spend it so that it benefits us more versus making other companies wealthy.
Of course.
Thank you. Go out and say, supporting our Black businesses. I think, we definitely, there are some businesses that need to show up a little better. I'll just say that. But as a collective and as a community, we're the only community that doesn't support each other in the ways that other communities do. And so I was thinking about Black Wall Street and how when they had a self-sustaining community where the dollar circulated 10 to 12 times before it went out into the larger community. So learning and getting back to a collective and a collaborative mindset, I think would be helpful in our overall well-being, because we're designed to be tribal people, right?
Absolutely.
We've lost touch with that. We've lost touch with community and what community means and how we all can collectively bring to the community to make us all better individually.
Of course. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I do want to be mindful of time. We'll definitely get more into that in the next episode. Ms. Nico, I know you said that you actually have to wrap it up. We want to thank everyone for their time. So do you mind just reminding us one more time kind of who you are and how we might be able to get in touch with you while you were here, and then we can go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just little old me. Well, I'm not little. maybe later. Look, I keep trying to work on my exercise goals, but I am Nico Baker. You can find me anywhere as Nico Baker, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not majorly on socials, but I am the president of the board of Lifted KC, the not-for-profit organization. Bringing awareness to mental health. And again, I am just most definitely involved in things like this so that we can touch and agree and help each other grow in the areas of mental health. And again, I have a passion for grief and also just helping people through their journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It was really nice having you tonight. I'll go ahead and take you backstage, and then, ladies, if we can go ahead and get outros from y'all, I can be in touch in the Facebook group. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I went over. All righty. Miss Lashonda, maybe do you want to go ahead and just remind us one more time who you were, what brought you to the show, and we can go ahead and get you going tonight.
Yeah, sure. Again, I'm LaShonda Arthur Lee. You can find me on all socials under my rap name from when I was rapping. It's a Rebel Red if you want to follow me. Otherwise, I'm just here to be a light and try to do like Miss Adrian said and contribute what I can to the collective to try to help raise us up.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your
Thank you.
perspective, and
Thank
we
you
look
for
forward to
having
seeing
me.
you. Of course, of course. Awesome. Miss Devin, do you mind going ahead and wrapping it up for us, giving us one more shout out as you have that mental health, I dare say, shirt
On
on?
this
And
couch with the sisters, but listen, my passion is for the men because I mean, honestly, as a woman, I don't want to be strong. I mean, respectfully, but I don't want to be the strong black woman. Like I want to be led and loved by a strong black man. So I am grateful for this platform. I am thankful for Princess and Rod reaching out to me and wanting to collaborate and just it really takes a community for us to remove the stigmas related to mental health, to really encourage one another to seek healing, to be supportive of the healing journey. So if you guys want to follow, like everybody else, I'm no celebrity, but my nonprofit is Lifted KC. We have a slew of events that I am excited about coming to Kansas City. Also about to trickle into some other states. Princess and them don't know it, but I'm about to start doing some stuff in St. Louis, so they will be a part of that. But
come
I also
through.
want to plug my coaching because I've been giving out these free services for so long, just making sure that people understand the importance of really investing in your mental health. Like it is important, it is imperative. So if you are looking for someone to talk to, as a life coach, I'm not able to diagnose, but we do create an atmosphere of confidentiality. We allow you to talk and we are goal based. My life coaching practice is anchored in hope. So reach out to me on Facebook under Lifted KC, Anchored in Hope, or Devin Elise on all socials, and I will connect with you and get you where you need to go.
Awesome. Awesome. Truly a pleasure having you. We
Yeah,
support Lifted KC for sure. Have a good one.
you too.
Okay. And of course, we have the lovely Miss Adrian. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you so much for all of your perspective. I loved having you. And do you mind just letting the audience know one more time who you are, what brought you to the show?
I am Adrienne Taylor again. I am a financial empowerment coach. I am able to take a holistic approach in helping a family with finances. And so, what brought me to the show is personal and professional experiences, relationships with mental health, and also kind of learning how to marry the two, the finances and the financial aspect of how it impacts mental health, and the relationship that we have with our money definitely plays a role in our mental wellness. And so I think this is an amazing platform that you all have created and long overdue, because we need to get rid of the stigma that's associated with mental health and mental wellness, because it's not any different than any other physical um, ailment or physical diagnosis that we might have. It's biological, there's a biological nature, environmental nature, just like any other diagnosis. And so we need to be more accepting, I think, of and more understanding of the struggle that's there, and more supportive of people getting the help that they need.
Yeah, that is so wonderful. Thank you. I also appreciate your time the other day. I can't wait to go more in depth. I actually would love to use myself as a case study. If you wouldn't mind doing that on a future episode, if that would help.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
Mrs. and I did a complimentary financial assessment, and so that's something that I do. Again, trying to remove the barriers for people to get their financial houses in order. So that if that's something that I offer is a complimentary assessment. It's a 30-minute assessment, and I have an app that takes a look at every aspect of a person's finances and gives them talking points, things that they need to take a look at addressing within their finances. And I offer resources to address those points as they come up. So yeah, I'd love to do a demo of what that looks like. And
yes,
they can definitely reach out to me.
Awesome. I cannot wait to feature and talk about that and have that demo. That was a surprise to the audience. I did not actually tell Miss Adrian that I wanted to do that. So I'm very excited. She didn't know what I was up to when she asked me if I wanted to see what she does. I was like, oh, she doesn't know what she just put in my hands because it shed light on me, and I really want to share that with the fans here.
Okay.
Excellent.
Happy to do that.
Of course. Well, it was wonderful having you tonight. I'm going to go ahead and put you backstage, and we'll see you in a future episode.
All right. Thanks for having me.
A little bit of essentialism, a little bit of erosiveness. We'll be unpacking a bit more on this topic in our conversation on Clubhouse next week. Don't forget to join us. Look out for the Blacked Out Couch House. You'll find the unpacking conversations there. If we don't see you then, we'll see you in a couple weeks for the next episode of the Blacked Out Couch. I hope we all heal.